Imagine standing in a $500 million penthouse, surrounded by gold-plated fixtures and Italian marble, only to turn the handle of your shower and hear nothing but a dry, hollow hiss. No water. Not for a day, not for a week, but forever. This isn't a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie. It is the mathematical reality facing the most luxurious city on the planet. While the world stares at Dubai's towering skyscrapers and artificial islands, a much more terrifying countdown has begun beneath the sand. The island of stability is built on a foundation of salt and extreme engineering, and for the first time in its history, that system is failing. The golden faucets are beginning to run dry, the green parks are turning brown, and the authorities are scrambling to hide a crisis that could turn this desert miracle back into a ghost town in less than 72 hours. In this video, we are exposing the fatal flaw in Dubai's existence, the terrifying truth about the desalinization plants, the secret reports on groundwater depletion, and why the wealthiest residents are already preparing for a life where water is more valuable than gold. Before we dive into the heart of this desert crisis, I have a small but vital favor to ask. It takes exactly 2 seconds of your time and costs you absolutely nothing to hit that subscribe button. But for this channel, it means everything. By subscribing, you help the algorithm bypass the filters that try to suppress the dark reality of the Gulf's elite, whereas helping us reach more people with the truth and allowing this channel to remain independent and monetized. Thank you for being part of the community. Dubai is a city that should not exist. Every single aspect of its survival is a direct war against nature. In a region where the average rainfall is less than 4 inches a year, Dubai consumes more water per capita than almost any other place on Earth. But where does it come from? It's not from rivers, it's not from lakes, and the ancient aquifers deep beneath the dunes are almost entirely exhausted. 99% of Dubai's potable water comes from the Persian Gulf through a process called desalinization. It is a massive, energy-intensive, and incredibly fragile industrial miracle. But there is a problem that the tourism ads never mention. Desalinization has a dark side, and that side is finally catching up with the Emirates. The recent regional escalations have exposed the terrifying vulnerability of these plants. A single disruption to the Jebel Ali power and desalination complex, the largest of its kind in the world, would leave millions of people without a single drop of drinkable water in just a matter of hours. Dubai's strategic water reserves are a closely guarded state secret, but independent analysts estimate that the city has less than a 3-day supply stored in its tanks. If the pumps stop, the clock starts. You can live without electricity, you can live without air conditioning, but you cannot survive 3 days in the 120-degree desert heat without water. This fatal flaw is the silent nightmare that keeps the city's architects awake at night. But the threat isn't just external. The very process of saving Dubai is currently killing the ocean that feeds it. For every gallon of fresh water produced, the plants pump 2 gallons of hypersaline brine back into the Gulf. This brine is hotter, saltier, and laced with chemicals used in the cleaning process. Because the Persian Gulf is a shallow, enclosed body of water with very little circulation, this salt is accumulating. We are reaching a peak salt moment, where the water in the Gulf is becoming too salty to be processed efficiently. The more water Dubai drinks, the more expensive and difficult it becomes to produce the next gallon. It is a suicide loop that is reaching its breaking point in 2026. Groundwater, which was once the backup plan, is now effectively gone. In the 1970s, you could find water just a few meters below the surface. Today, farmers and developers have to drill hundreds of meters down only to find water that is so salty and contaminated that it kills the crops it was meant to save. The Green Dubai initiative, which saw the planting of millions of trees and the creation of lush golf courses, was built on the assumption that the water would always flow. But as the cost of desalinization skyrockets and the environmental impact becomes undeniable, the city is facing a choice: keep the grass green or keep the people alive. Internal memos from the Dubai Electricity and Water Authority suggest that the current consumption rates are catastrophically unsustainable. The city is growing faster than the infrastructure can keep up. Every new skyscraper added to the skyline adds thousands of new mouths to feed and toilets to flush. But the ocean can only give so much. This is why we are seeing a sudden frantic push for cloud seeding, the controversial practice of forcing clouds to rain by spraying them with silver iodide. While the government portrays this as a technological triumph, experts warn it is an act of desperation. Cloud seeding is unpredictable. And as we saw with the recent historic floods, it can cause more damage to the infrastructure than it provides in usable water. The elite are already reacting. In the gated communities of Emirates Hills, the most expensive villas are being retrofitted with massive private underground water storage tanks and advanced atmospheric water generators that pull moisture from the air. These millionaires aren't just buying security, they are buying time. They know that when the crisis hits, the government will prioritize the hospitals and the military, leaving the residential towers to fend for themselves. The water exodus has already begun among those who have the means to move their capital to more temperate climates. They are trading their desert penthouses for lakeside estates in Europe and North America, realizing that luxury is worthless without a reliable faucet. Furthermore, the brine crisis is destroying the local fishing industry and the delicate coral reefs that once protected the shoreline. As the ecosystem collapses, the natural beauty that attracted millions of tourists is fading. The water around Dubai is becoming a dead zone, devoid of life and increasingly toxic. This environmental decay is a lead indicator of the city's overall health. If the ocean can no longer support life, how can a city of 3 million people expect to survive on its shores? The arrogance of building a mega metropolis in a wasteland is finally meeting the reality of biological limits. The financial implications of a water shortage are incomprehensible. The entire real estate market in Dubai is predicated on the idea of infinite growth and absolute comfort. If the perception of water security shifts, property values will evaporate overnight. Who would buy an apartment on the 81st floor of a building where the water pressure might fail at any moment? Investors are starting to look at the water risk as a primary factor in their portfolios. The safe haven status of the UAE is being questioned, not because of its banks, but because of its pipes. As we look at the logistics of the desalinization plants, we see a system under immense strain. The machinery is being pushed to its absolute limit to keep up with the demand of the summer months. Maintenance cycles are being shortened, and the risk of a catastrophic mechanical failure is higher than ever. In the shadow of regional instability, the fear of a cyber attack on the control systems of these plants is a reality that the security forces are struggling to manage. A few lines of code could do more damage to Dubai than a fleet of bombers by simply turning off the water. This is the fatal flaw they can't hide anymore. The mirage is flickering. The city of gold is realizing it is actually a city of salt. As the sun beats down on the glass towers, the sound of the desert wind is being joined by the sound of empty pipes. The countdown has reached a critical stage. And for the millions of expatriates who call Dubai home, the question is no longer, how much can I earn, but how much longer can I stay? The water is running out and the desert is waiting to take back what was stolen from it. The terrifying reality of Dubai's water crisis isn't just about the scarcity of the resource. It's about the catastrophic failure of the infrastructure required to move it. In a city of skyscrapers, water doesn't just flow, it has to be pumped against gravity to reach the thousands of luxury apartments suspended in the sky. These pumping systems require a constant, massive supply of electricity. If the power grid, already strained by the record-breaking heat waves of 2026, were to falter for even a few hours, the entire vertical city would effectively shut down. We are seeing reports of pressure drops in some of the older districts of Deira and Bur Dubai, a subtle but ominous sign that the system is reaching its mechanical limits. This brings us to the brine revenge phenomenon. For years, scientists warned that dumping millions of tons of concentrated salt back into the Persian Gulf would create a Dead Sea. Now, in March 2026, those warnings have become a reality. The salinity levels near the intake pipes of the major desalinization plants have reached a point where the membranes are clogging at triple the normal rate. This isn't just an environmental tragedy, it's an engineering nightmare. To keep the water flowing, the plants have to use more chemicals and more energy, which in turn creates more brine. Warren, it is a feedback loop of destruction that is making the very water Dubai relies on increasingly toxic and difficult to treat. The economic cost of this water war is being passed directly to the residents. Over the last 6 months, water utility bills for expats have surged by 45%. For the middle-class families and small business owners who are already struggling with the rising cost of living, this is the breaking point. We are seeing a massive spike in lease terminations as people realize that the tax-free life is being eaten away by the soaring cost of basic survival. In the industrial areas, where thousands of workers live in crowded conditions, the water rationing has already begun. The hidden Dubai is thirsty, and that thirst is turning into resentment. Logistically, around the UAE is trying to pivot toward massive aquifer injection projects, pumping desalinated water back into the ground to create an emergency reserve. But these projects are years behind schedule and billions of dollars over budget. The geological reality is that the sand and rock beneath Dubai are not a perfect sponge. Much of the water being stored is simply leaking away or becoming contaminated by the surrounding saltwater. The government is selling a dream of water security, but the data suggests they are just buying a few more months of time. The fatal flaw is also attracting the wrong kind of international attention. Short sellers and hedge fund managers are now looking at water vulnerability as the new metric for shorting Dubai's real estate market. They aren't looking at interest rates or tourism numbers. They're looking at the salinity charts of the Persian Gulf. If the world's investors decide that Dubai is a dry risk, the capital flight will be unstoppable. We've already seen a 12% dip in off-plan sales for new luxury towers that don't have independent, sustainable water systems. The market is waking up to the fact that a building without water is just a very expensive pile of glass and steel. Even more alarming is the silence from the influencers and the PR machines. Usually, any challenge in Dubai is met with a flurry of everything is perfect content. But you can't influence your way out of a drought. The lack of transparency is creating a vacuum where rumors are thriving. In the expat WhatsApp groups, stories are circulating of luxury hotels having to truck in water to keep their pools full, staring of black market water tankers charging 10 times the official rate. When the trust in the public utility disappears, the city's social contract disappears with it. As we look at the satellite photos of the region, the contrast is haunting. You see the vibrant blue of the artificial lagoons and the deep green of the golf courses, surrounded by a sea that is becoming increasingly hostile and a desert that is closing in. Dubai is fighting a two-front war, one against the salt in the water and another against the heat in the air. By the end of 2026, many analysts predict that the cost of water will surpass the cost of fuel as the city's primary economic burden. The oil for water trade is the only thing keeping the lights on, but as global oil demand fluctuates, even that lifeline is fraying. The endgame of the water crisis is a controlled depopulation. If the city cannot support 4 million people, it will have to decide who stays and who goes. We are already seeing the first signs of this through the utility-based visa restrictions, where residency is becoming tied to the ability to pay exorbitant sustainability fees. The Dubai of the future may be a smaller, even more exclusive enclave for the ultra-rich, while the millions of workers and middle-class expats who built the city are pushed out by the sheer cost of a glass of water. This is the reality they can't hide behind the fountains of the Burj Khalifa anymore. The desert doesn't forgive, and the ocean doesn't forget. Dubai's fatal flaw has been exposed. How when the world is watching to see if the city of the future can survive the most basic challenge of the past. The water is running out, the salt is rising, and the mirage is finally starting to evaporate. If you found this investigation into Dubai's hidden crisis important, please hit the like button. It's the best way to help this information reach others before it's too long. What do you think? Is Dubai's technology enough to beat the desert, or is the water debt finally due? If you've noticed changes in the water quality or prices in the Gulf, share your story in the comments below. Your firsthand accounts are the only way to track the truth in real time. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for our next deep dive into the crumbling pillars of the desert dream. We'll see you in the next one. Stay vigilant.